I often receive the questions of, what are the different leadership styles? Or, what is the best leadership style? How do I know what style to use during a particular incident? These questions are common for all new leaders or those who lack experience in a wide range of situations. Often people become bosses because they stick to one particular style, which is authoritarian in its base, and that leads to a negative perception. Today, I go over the leadership style spectrum, covering topics such as new leadership styles and ideologies, the different types of leadership styles along the spectrum, the uses of the various styles, and then finally, the best leadership style. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast, episode 74, the leadership style spectrum. Hey everybody, welcome all to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast. It's your host and founder, Scott McCarthy. And thanks for coming out. Thanks for listening. And most importantly, thanks for being a part of this epically growing community revolving around getting people to stop bossing and start leading. And it doesn't matter if you're a brand new leader, if you're someone who is looking at joining the leadership roles, or you're a seasoned leader, we can all learn something, right? And you know what? There are just way too many bosses out there in the world. And our mission here at Moving Forward Leadership is to, day by day, one boss at a time, turn them into actual leaders. So thanks for coming out. Before we dive into today's solo episode, so I'm going to be by myself, which happens from time to time, depending on guest schedules and my schedule. But I want to dive into something exciting. I want to dive into an announcement for you all out there. Okay? And that is the preparation for the launch of my first program. That's right. My first program revolving around you, the individual, you, the leader, you, the person. Okay? If you're having troubles achieving your goals, if you're not sure how to go about achieving something that you've tried so many times, if you know you want to make yourself better, but you don't know in what areas or how to go about doing it, then this is going to be for you, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. The Power Goals program is coming to you. It's currently in its final polishing stage right now, but if you're interested in learning more about how to go about finding out what goals are proper for you, the individual, how you can go about achieving those goals, how you go about organizing your life to achieve those goals, and how you go about adjusting along the course of the journey in your goal achievement to ensure success, then you should go to movingforwardleadership.com/power. And there what you're going to find is the mailing list for the Power Goals program for all the information relating to its launch. Be sure to check it out. And hey, you know what? It's not going to cost you anything to sign up for the mailing list. It's completely free. Again, that's movingforwardleadership.com/power. All right, folks, that's enough of the marketing, right? You're not here for that. You're here for the leadership goods. You're here to learn hopefully something new and something, most importantly, pertinent to you. So there's a lot of talk out there right now, right? A lot of talk on leadership styles, and whether that's directly saying leadership style or indirectly saying it through various publications and books. And yes, I'm going to get a little bit pointy here, and it's not to be critical, okay? But the one thing that absolutely drives me nuts is when all these gurus come out and say, I have the newest and latest and greatest thing in the leadership space. Check out the best style modeled after my experience based off of all the different successes I've had, yada, yada, yada. Okay? These things absolutely drive me bonkers, and I'll explain to you why. And ironically, I'm going to start with why from Simon Sinek. You see, absolutely nothing wrong with what Simon goes about in his book and in his videos and in all of his speeches and talks, etc. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it whatsoever. But the one thing which it is not new. Starting with why has been around my leadership journey since the beginning. It was something that was ingrained in me basically from day one. And why? So that your people have a greater understanding of the task at hand, what you want them to achieve, the reasoning behind it, because they will be more likely to go the extra distance for you, to work harder for you, to have a better understanding of what's to be achieved and potentially bring up other solutions that may be more effective, more efficient, easier to implement, etc. So why is start with why such a success? Is due to the marketing around the message, right? It's about how it's been packaged up and presented to you, the consumer. And again, I'm not being critical about Simon. Kudos to him. He is super successful in the sphere, a leader in the leadership sphere. And I have nothing but respect for him. And he's taken something which is not new and turned it into a publication and geared that publication towards the consumer in a way which obviously has resonated with you. Therefore, people are buying it and understanding it and implementing it, which is awesome. Absolutely awesome. Exactly what I am doing here moving forward leadership. No different. But the one thing you'll never hear me say is this is new stuff, folks. Because it's not. We people have been on the planet for tens of thousands, if not longer, years. And we're doing two things since the beginning of time, since humans have existed. We've been leading people, and unfortunately we've been finding ways to inflict pain on people. A little bit more about it on the second one, but truth has to be told, right? So let's go back to the first one. For tens of thousands of years, we've been leading people. Why? Because there are always leaders and there are always followers. I think we figured out this thing. I think we've gone ahead and taken out all the core concepts, all the core ideologies, all the lessons learned, and have since applied them, studied them, implemented them, etc. So again, I go back to there is nothing new out there. Skipping over to the different styles, and you'll hear people coming out now. And again, it's much along the lines of start with why. It's that they're, preaching their style of leadership or the leadership style that really resonated with them, with their team, and have since wrote a book about it, are preaching about it, doing a TED Talk, etc. And again, saying this is the best thing since sliced bread. But again, I go back to, this is not new. There is no leadership style which is new. We've been doing this for tens of thousands of years. Okay? It's again just how it's being marketed, how it's being packaged, how it's being presented to you, so that hopefully it resonates with you. And what I'm trying to do is, cut away the black tape, demystify this whole leadership thing for you, so that hopefully you don't become a boss. Or if you feel like you are a boss right now, you make that transition from boss to leader. So, to sum up quickly, there is no such thing as a new leadership style. There's no such thing as a new leadership concept. It is how we go about implementing the leadership lessons which have been around for tens of thousands of years. Okay? There's my rant for today. So let's talk about the spectrum, shall we? The leadership style spectrum. I need you to visualize for me for a minute, okay? Visualize a line. So a spectrum, it's a line. It goes left to right. Draw a line in the middle that's going vertical in the middle of this horizontal line. On the far left, you're going to have essentially the dictator, right? This is your ultimate authoritarian style of leadership, which is pretty well taking 100% control of the power within the organization and allowing no one else to have. If you go to the far right, you will have the laissez-faire style. And the laissez-faire is the one who gives up everything, who, if you're in this zone, sometimes you don't even know if they're alive or not. They may just simply not care. You may see them in the morning when they show up to work. They'll walk in their office, close the door, and you won't see them again until they leave at the end of the day. And you may not even have any contact with this leader, who is the laissez-faire type. Now, people out there will say that those two are to be avoided at all costs. I would say that is not necessarily true. I would say that between authoritarian and laissez-faire, there is a use for every single style between those two and including those two along the whole spectrum. So remember that vertical line I told you that separates the spectrum in half? What you want to picture now is on the left side is authoritarian styles. And then on the right side is transformational styles. And these are the two big groups. Your authoritarian style are more of the direct styles of leadership. They're the ones that are going to give you your job, your tasks, your resources, and basically tell you how they want to get it done. And that will vary as you get closer to that, either that center line or that far left endpoint of full authoritarian. The transformational style on the right, or the transformational group, I should say, those styles are more along the lines of empowering their people, giving them the tasks, telling them what the mission is, telling them the why behind the mission, but letting them go ahead and figuring out how to achieve it on their own. Now, I could go and talk to you about every single quote-unquote style along this whole spectrum, such as delegative, persuasive, servant, directive, etc., etc., etc. But what you're going to turn around and say to me someday is, well, so-and-so mentioned this style of leadership, which you didn't cover on your spectrum. Why not? Because everybody has, again, their spin on leadership and leadership styles. And I may go ahead and say, okay, I have these 4 different types of transformational styles, and I have these 4 different types of authoritarian styles. But someone may group 2 of them together, or pieces of 2 of them together, and quote unquote create a new style of leadership. Again, it's not new. It's just a different way of looking at it. So what I'm going to focus in on is the groupings. And you would have a hard time convincing me that there's anything but these two different types of groups, i.e. the authoritarian group and the transformational group. Now let's go back to the endpoints of the groups, the full authoritarian and the laissez-faire, shall we? You see, these still have their places and their times to be used. You just have to know when to effectively use these styles of leadership. The laissez-faire style is great when you want a group of people to brainstorm, to come up with new ideas, to think outside the box. Throw them in a room, put it with a whiteboard on the wall, throw some markers down on the table, tell them, give them some arcs, and walk out. That is laissez-faire type of leadership. You come back and you listen to what they have to say. Full authoritarian is useful for when you got to fire somebody, remove them from their job. There is no back and forth conversation here when you're firing someone, removing them from their job. It is a one-way conversation. You, my friend, sorry, but you're not a good fit for us. You're going to have to leave. Please pack up your things and go. There is no control given to that individual. There is no back and forth conversation. It is simply, thank you. I wish you all the best. However, your time here is done. And you may go, oh my God, that's not a great leadership style, Scott. That's not needed. You just fired somebody. Yeah, but if you've done everything in the background, if you tried to train them, if you tried to correct their deficiencies, if you tried to find a place for them to fit in the team, and all those things failed, if they're still the horrible employee that simply does not work for you, is your job as the leader to remedy that situation. And in this case, you need to use that full authoritarian style of leadership and dismiss that individual. Case in point, done. The problem that leaders face within these two extreme styles is that they spend too much time in them. That someone is either completely laissez-faire all the time, which turns around and shows to, or gives the impression, I should say, to their team, to the organization, they don't care. They're simply there to collect the paycheck. They don't give a crap about the numbers or productivity or outcomes. Don't care about their people. They just simply are there. And that's not a great style of leadership to have day in, day out, because you lose your team. And then finally, when you try to go ahead and influence them, try to get them to do something above and beyond, they just don't care. Because why should I care if you haven't cared for all this time? All suddenly now you want something out of me? No. Sorry, boss. I'm out of here. And then you go to the full authoritarian side, and if you're in that style for too long, then people start losing trust in you. They stop listening to what you have to say. They simply are there because they're too scared to do anything else. The only reason why you're getting outcomes out of them is because you are basically strong-arming them into providing an outcome, providing productivity. It's not because they want to. It's because they're too scared to not to. And the negative impacts of that style is that you're going to get a higher turnover rate. People are just going to simply quit because they can't deal with you anymore. You're not going to hear the ground truth. Instead, you're going to hear what people think you want to hear because they don't want to deal with your backlash. I've worked for leaders in both of these styles, and I can tell you point blank, it sucks. It is absolutely horrible working for bosses. That's right, their bosses in those two styles. You never know what you're going to get from one. And the other, you don't ever know if they care or if what you're providing them is what they're looking for. And simply a matter of fact, those are some of the worst years I can remember working, and some of the worst bosses. No, they are the worst bosses I've ever had. And they are on the both ends of the spectrum. So my point to all of that is that the extremities is not the place where you want to stay. Where you want to stay, in my mind, is in that transformational zone. Again, the transformational leadership zone is the leadership style where you're being influential, where you're being inspirational, where you're developing your people to take over from you from one day. You're giving them more skill sets. You're empowering them to make decisions. To me, that is where you want to spend the bulk of your time. Somewhere in that group. And again, I could go over every single style within the spectrum, but what's going to happen is you're going to hear of a different style that isn't going to jive what I'm talking about. So I'm just keeping it simple, okay, ladies and gentlemen? I'm keeping to transformational group and authoritarian group. Transformational leadership is the group where you want, like I said, you want to spend the bulk of your time. Authoritarian, you need to go in there from time to time. When you need results fast is often when you'll go into an authoritarian style. So, for example, if you look at, I'm a huge fan of the show Chicago Fire. And the fire chief there, he's the leader. He's the man. He's the boss. And what you'll see from him is that he'll often, despite his demeanor, despite the look on his face, he'll often be in that transformational group day in, day out, while he and his team are just relaxing at the firehouse. But when the entire firehouse gets on a call and they're at a fire zone, you see him going into the authoritarian side very quickly. And why is that? Well, one, he's the person on charge. Two, the scene is very dangerous. He wants to make sure that what he's telling people, they're following. And why is he telling them that? Because he's the one with the most experience. Now, you may immediately think, well, he's being dictatorish. That's a negative way to look at it. But the reality is there's positive out of this. Why is he taking this very directive approach to his leadership style at that moment? Because he doesn't want to give the burden of making the wrong decision to one of his people. So if he said, hey, what do you guys think we should do? Should we send in squad or should we just, hose it down? And one of his lieutenants says, we'll send in squad. And he goes, okay, sure. And all suddenly a guy or two from squad gets killed. That lieutenant is going to carry that with him for the rest of his life. However, if the captain is the only one making the call, he's shouldering that burden. He's actually taking the control in a positive manner and holding it for himself, because that highly dangerous situation, he's the one that has to make the call. And in the end, the burden falls on him and no one else. So that's a good time, you see, when you want to use that authoritative side. So I've talked about transformational leadership. I talked about authoritarian style group of leadership, and I've talked about the extremes. And I've kind of glanced over the different styles, and I won't go into them. But the one question I'll go over right now, ladies and gentlemen, is what is the best style? You've heard me. Many podcasts preach about delegation and the power of delegation. And I'll continue to do so. Why? Because that is the style that has resonated the best with me. Empowering my people to go ahead and take action is what's worked best for me. Therefore, I am doing exactly what I said other people are doing, taking that message and pushing it out. Nothing wrong with that. It's just how it is. But I don't believe delegation is the best style of leadership. And you're probably shaking your head going, what? I don't believe that supportive style of leadership is the best style of leadership. I don't believe persuasive is the best, or directive is the best, or authoritarian, or laissez-faire. I don't believe any style of leadership is the best. What I believe is the best leaders able to move along the spectrum seamlessly as the situation requires. You see, to me, the best leaders are the ones that can go from authoritative to delegative to facilitative and over to laissez-faire and back to supportive in a matter of hours, minutes, days, all depends on the situation. So let me give you an example. You have 3 meetings in the morning. You have a firing, you have brainstorming, and then finally you have an award ceremony. If you're a fully authoritarian, the firing wouldn't be a big issue. The person would walk in, you tell them, yep, you're fired, you're out. You walk down to the brainstorming and you'd give them everything. You tell them exactly. You would leave them no room to actually brainstorm, to think of new ideas, to look at a problem in a different way. So you'd get the exact same old results that you've been getting for so long now. And then you would go to the award ceremony and you would say, yep, congratulations, here's your award, now get back to work. Let's go to the transformational side. If you were a transformational leader, you would go to the firing and you would actually try to coach the individual. Again, you would try to get them to fix the mistakes that you've been trying to get them to fix for months now. That's not really effective firing, is it? You'd go to the brainstorming session. You let them know what you want out of it, and then you drop down the markers and tell them to have at the whiteboard, and you'll be back after the awards presentation. You'd go to the awards presentation, but you wouldn't just give one award to somebody. You'd be like Oprah Winfrey, going, you get an award, you get an award, you get an award. Everybody gets awards. And what happens when everybody gets something? The value of that thing just diminishes, right? It's the problem that we're seeing now with participation awards in young kids. It doesn't mean anything. They're getting something for nothing. Therefore, are you actually reinforcing the behavior that you're hoping to get out of the individuals? No, you're not. In fact, you're reinforcing the opposite behavior, because there's going to be people in that group that are going to be like, oh, sweet, I got this award for doing nothing. What's the best way to go about doing this? And again, like I've said, the best leaders are the ones who slide from style to style, depending on the situation. So they go into the firing and they fire the person. Boom, done. Thank you. You know what? Best of luck. However, you just weren't a good fit here. On the complete authoritarian side, you go into the brainstorming session, just like the transformational leader. You drop the markers on the table. You give them some quick boundaries, some arcs, however you want to call it. And you say, all right, I'll be back after the award ceremony. You go down to the award ceremony. You present the 1 or 2 people who were deserving of the awards. You pump up the rest of the team and using them as examples of how everybody is on track to become like that. But you know what? You have to recognize some of the key people in the organization. You see, I just went from 2 extremes to back in the middle. And that, folks, can literally take 30 minutes max. And that's what I mean by the best type of leadership. So that's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that this was beneficial to you. I hope that you're going to get a lot out of it. I'm sure you will. And again, keep in mind, if you're ready to learn how to start betting yourself, movingforleadership.com/power. It's free to sign up for the newsletter when I push out more information. The program, we're less than a month away from launch, and I couldn't be more excited. Can't be more excited for the things that are going to come for you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as always, keep in mind R², S². Rate and review the show so that, you know what, I can help people. I can help more people become better leaders. That's all I'm here for, and that's all I care about. S, subscribe. If you're not subscribed to this podcast, then what are you waiting for? Just go movingforleadership.com/subscribe and hit the button with the type of podcast player that suits you best. From Apple Podcasts to Android, whatever app you like to use, to Google Play Music, to even good old RSS feeds. And then finally, share. Share this episode. Share this with someone who you think it may resonate with. Someone who could use this in their leadership journey. And hopefully, they'll stop bossing and start leading. All right, ladies and gentlemen, And until next time, remember, stop bossing, start leading. Take care now.